the jury apparently has reached a verdict in 8 out of 18 counts against Paul Manafort. That leaves 10 counts that they have not reached a verdict on. Just a reminder, Mr. Manafort faces 18 counts. He has pleaded not guilty to each one of those. It was a 12-day trial, and basically the jurors began deliberating on Thursday, August 16th. Apparently, they have reached a verdict on 8 out of 18 counts. You will recall just a few moments ago, I told you that the jury submitted a question to the judge or a statement to the judge. We don't know whether it was a question or them telling the judge that they had reached a verdict on a number of charges. Basically, we've been showing you what Mr. Manafort is accused of. Once again, he has pled not guilty to all of those counts. What's going to be interesting is to see the judge's response. Will he take it as a partial verdict? Will he tell them to go back and continue deliberating on the other 10 counts that they have not received or been able to come to consensus on? So that's what we're waiting for. But once again, they have received a verdict or come to a verdict on 8 out of 18 counts. The maximum sentence that Mr. Manafort faced on all 18 counts was 305 years. We'll keep you posted. This is a still developing breaking news story. I'll turn it back to you guys.
Okay, Sue, and I'm feeling we'll be back to you soon. Let's get Damon Javers now as well, trying to make sense of all this. A strange coupling as well, of course, of these two stories, Damon.
Yeah, it's certainly a fascinating moment, right? So let's refresh exactly what we know about the charges that Mr. Manafort was facing here. They came basically in 3 different buckets, right? The first one was on subscribing to bad tax returns, ultimately putting his name to tax returns that were not accurate because he was hiding income, according to the government. The second was failing to file what they call an FBAR, a foreign bank account report, which you have to do if you have assets in a bank account overseas. You've got to declare those assets to the IRS and pay any related taxes to those assets. And then the third category here is bank fraud. The government was alleging in this case that Manafort was, along with Rick Gates, his number 2, they were doctoring documents, in essence, in order to convince banks to lend money to Paul Manafort that the banks otherwise wouldn't have loaned. So those are the 3 areas where he's facing charges here. The jury has come to some decision here on 8 of the 18 counts. We don't know which of these 3 buckets it's in, but you could suppose that maybe they had an easier time dealing with one of those issues and a more difficult time dealing with some of the other issues. And remember, Paul Manafort's not out of legal jeopardy no matter what happens here. He's got another trial in Washington in September in which he's going to face allegations of failing to file lobbying disclosure reports, Foreign Agent Registration Act reports, and other documents that were required in terms of his lobbying business. So no matter what happens here, Paul Manafort is not out of the legal woods, but it could be an encouraging sign for his defense that so far, at least, the jury seems unable to come to an agreement on 10 of those counts. That's more than half of the counts that Paul Manafort was facing. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the judge, though. We'll see what he does. So much speculation on the judge here because he was seen to be very tough on the prosecution during the course of their arguing this case, and we'll see if that had any bearing on the decision here when we get this verdict, which should happen momentarily if the judge decides to go forward with it. Otherwise, we could see the jury go back to their deliberations.